Yes, hello and welcome to all our West Australian football fans to our Tuesday review edition of Around the WAFL, the first for season 2023 here on the BackChat studios. And by God almighty, wasn't round one awfully good? The turnouts, the footy, the action, the atmosphere, everything you can have about WAFL football. It was sensational. We're going to review all 5 games. You can listen live on wherever you get your podcasts, or you can watch us on YouTube. It's our round one review. Paul Persick with you in the BackChat studios. It's a great pleasure to have your company. And I'm joined this week by a man who had the whistle in his hand for over 300 games of AFL footy. Here, he's going to be making calls of a different kind. Umpiring legend Dean Margetts. Dean, welcome.
G'day, Paul. Nice to be part of the program. WAFL, how good was it in round one?
Oh, was it sensational? I mean, the games, the atmosphere, the action, and big news as well with the centre bounce now being gone for season 2023. Not a lot of people created a fuss. They just got used to it from the outset.
I was there for the 8:40 start, West Perth Claremont up at Pentanet Stadium, and I was a little bit nervous. I was hoping young Callum Taverner had the first opportunity to throw it up in an official WAFL game, and it was perfect. And throughout the whole day, it was very seamless, and I think it found its place very comfortably, and having seen some of the bounces throughout the AFL over the weekend, I think we're a trailblazing decision maker here.
Would you think the AFL within the next 12 months could revert to throwing it up every time?
Yeah, I'm pretty comfortable they're going to do that for sure. I think they're going to use us as a bit of a guinea pig, I guess, and see how it goes. But I think after probably a month or so, they're going to go, yeah, this is where we need to be.
And the standard of games can really reflect on that as well. It didn't take away the competitiveness of the ruck contest. I mentioned with Mark Reddings on Thursday that it was going to make it a lot more even, and we didn't have to waste 3 to 5 seconds of game time to have a recall.
100% agree, and I think it just takes away that negativity comment in the crowd. When there's that poor bounce, straight away go, oh, umpies, and then they're thinking negative all along. But certainly being at Joondalup on the weekend, it was certainly a clean flow. The umpires get to look at a clean ruck contest, and what we want is our best decision makers making elite decisions, and also managing the game. The bouncing thing becomes a bit of a non-issue now for us.
Speaking of the fans, didn't they turn out in numbers for these games? Fans young and old, with the new marketing campaign for the WAFL, attracting new fans to the competition, and didn't we get some great crowds throughout the 5 games?
Absolutely. I mean, win-win waffle. I think we certainly saw some victorious crowds. I know leaving the ground on Friday, Good Friday, at Joondalup, we got some feedback from the West Perth faithful, which I would expect, but certainly they're enthusiastic, and to see the kids on the ground having a good time, and with weather being perfect, it was a big win for football.
It certainly was. I was down at Mandurah and Lathlane on the Friday and the Saturday. The atmosphere, the noise was just unbelievable. In fact, over in Mandurah, there were some young fans blowing those horns, those plastic horns. So that's a nice little blast from the past, but it was fantastic.
Yeah. Is that the old, what do you call them, the old World Cup soccer horns?
Yeah.
Vuvuzela. There's a go. Yeah, I can't spell it, but I can barely say it as well.
No, the Vuvuzela horns, they were fantastic, and the atmosphere too over at Lathlane on Saturday night football back at WAFL level once again.
Brilliant.
And I think that really should set a discussion. Should more WAFL games be played on those Saturday nights or Friday nights to attract those fans?
I think so. I think the challenge is we don't have grounds that are, I guess, lit up like MRP. Obviously, that's a high-quality AFL sort of training facility for West Coast. But if we can, then I think we should utilise it for sure.
Well, there are going to be some night games in Colts and WAFL W at the WACA during the year as well, so they'll get more use there. That should set the catalyst for at least league games there during the season.
100%. And the WACA is a great facility. Obviously, the lights are world-class, so we should use those grounds and venues to really showcase how wonderful competition, which WAFL is, will be in 2023.
No doubt about it. It's going to be a great season. This is our round one review here on Around the WAFL. Paul Persick and Dean Margetts. Let's get right down to business, Dean. All the 5 games, starting off with the grand final rematch at Pentanet Stadium on Friday. Many expected this one to be another ferocious contest. It did, but it was Claremont that produced all the ferocity. Winners by 14 points, 7-14 to 5-12 over West Perth.
Impressive game. If that's going to be our standard of our top sort of 4 sides, we're in for a wonderful season. What I did notice with Claremont, Paul, was their ability to kick the ball so well. Their field kicking from half back. I think Jai Bolton's lost a bit of weight. It looks like he's very light on his feet, and marshal the troops well with an over 30 disposal game. And just, impressive. Jack Buller, his height and some of his marking, impressive. So Claremont looked the team to beat early doors.
Yeah, they certainly is, and I tipped them to miss the 5. I'm disappointed in that. But still, credit to Claremont. They were fantastic. I mean, Bolton, like you said, he looks a little bit fitter, light on his feet, very quick across the ground, 28 disposals and 7 marks. And also, Buller could be a prospect for the mid-season draft later down the track.
He has some impressive long arms, long levers, and when he takes that mark at that top point, he's hard to beat. He either gets an arm chop free kick or he's going to take the mark, and he looked in good form early.
West Perth, to be fair, they looked pretty rusty for most of that game. They were unable to kick a goal in the first quarter. They struggled, especially with a bit of a breeze blowing across the ground, and held to 5-12 when their best forwards, Knott and Keitel, failed to fire. That's a bit of a head scratcher for Darren Harris and his team.
What's plan B? When they don't fire or get touch the footy, what's their option? And to kick 5 goals in a perfect day, and I know the wind was swelling, but 5-12 probably doesn't going to get it done in that game. Now, Paul, before you go on, you mentioned your tipping. You said you tipped West Perth. Now,
yes, I did.
I think for all our viewers, we need to sort of clarify: is it true, and can you confirm that you tipped 1 out of 5 in the WAFL this weekend?
Yes, that is correct. 1 out of 5.
And that was the South Fremantle West Coast game, which was probably going to be the one most would have got right.
Yes.
So maybe it's going to be some more homework for you over the coming weeks.
Yes, I think so. My tipping is now in the same toilet that Bernard Tomic drinks out of, I'll say that much. Now, Sam Rotham, he's also another issue for West Perth. He got reported twice in that game.
He did. Now, obviously, they'll be going for the MRP this morning, so I can't say too much, but he was reported for a dangerous tackle on Jai Bolton and also for I think it was an attempted strike on a Claremont player as well. So it happened very quickly. Right in front of the members stand there. Whether he was trying to inspire some energy there, I don't know, but probably, just overstepped the mark a bit there, Sam.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk around whether that will get at least 1 or 2 weeks, but we'll have to find out what the MRP's verdict will be on after the discussion today. Now, the second game, this one was a beauty over at Leederville Oval. Swan Districts, they were out of it at half-time, 4-goal deficit. They came back strongly, but they just couldn't capitalise on their late chances. And East Perth, what a win for them under Ross McQueen. First game, first win as new coach.
How good. And just on a second point there, that was our first 4-umpire system too, Paul. So, again, another sort of world first for WAFL footy, throwing the ball up, but also our 4-umpire system. But, to have 2 new coaches, Andrew Pruin and Ross McQueen, going head-to-head and to get to a 1-point ball game, can't ask for much more than that.
What did you make of the 4-umpire trial that was used for the first time? I know there was always going to be a lot of debate that, there's too many umpires out there on the field to stick to 3 or 2. What did you make of it?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Other than sort of backing out towards the boundary, there's not much difference other than 2 guys setting up in the mid-zone. People always say there's another interpretation to worry about, but my view would be, or my response is, all our umpires get coached the same. They're in the same room getting the same information. So it's not an interpretational change. It's just simply some umpires think it's a free kick and some don't. And sometimes we make it a mistake. Sometimes we get it wrong. We're a very accountable business for that. So we go through reviews every week, and they'll happen tonight at training. Overall, Luke Farmer was our match day coach, and he said it seemed to go very well and certainly assisted in the way that game was played.
It was a big tick in the box, I can imagine, for the 4-umpire trial. Maybe it could be used in future games if they continue to put in some positive reviews.
100%.
Now, into that game in particular, Angus Schumacher and also Hamish Brayshaw, 2 of the more important midfielders, so to speak, in East Perth. They form a good core setup in the midfield rotation. 47 possessions between them in setting up that win. Yeah,
both have great footy IQ and also strong midfield bodies. So I think when they're touching the footy as much as they are there, Paul, they're going to be very hard to beat, particularly at games at Leederville.
Yeah, Leederville, always a tough ground to beat. East Perth, or for that matter, Subiaco, who are going to be meeting in round 2 as well this weekend. That should be an absolute beauty. Also, Scotty Jones in the ruck, immense, 47 hit-outs, completely dominating Jesse Glass-McCasker in the ruck.
And I'm backing that he liked the throw up, getting nice clean looks at that first ball. Scotty Jones, again, a former AFL player who has some very footy IQ, again, smart in the ruck, clever, and can go forward and kick a goal too. So he's going to be a big opportunist for the East Perth Footy Club this year.
What about Andrew Pruin and Swan Districts? They weren't disgraced. Even though they were in trouble at halftime, they found their way back into the contest with the likes of Toby Watson playing at half-back and a little further up the ground. Aidan Clark, 38 possessions, and Samuel Fisher, the 2020 Sandover medalist, continuing his form, 25 touches and 7 tackles. Their second half was fantastic, but they were playing catch-up football for much of the afternoon.
Makes it tough when you're chasing, but Andrew Pruin comes from that community footy background, and I think what I understand with Andrew's coaching is he's a great relationship builder, and I think he's going to have those players on side, and to get within 1 point in his first game is pretty impressive, and I can see a build and an improvement, particularly when they get back to the Fortress at Steel Blue. Almost impossible to win there, so if they're up and about, I think Andrew will have them ticking over pretty well.
They only lost once, I think, last year over there at Steel Blue over to East Fremantle, which is the side that they'll be be meeting in round 2 for the second time in 2 years. That should be a beauty. The accuracy by Swan Districts from midfield into attack was a little bit off in that first half. I mean, the final analysis would read 45.8% in disposal accuracy to 60%. Yeah, East Perth had a few of their moments in that second half, but Swan Districts, they just couldn't capitalise on their opportunities late.
It's about making your moments count. So I go in a 1-point ball game. Those little things do take. I guess are really important to have, as you know, Paul. So hopefully Swans can tidy those disposal efficiencies up for this weekend, and at the Fortress will be very tough to beat against.
Would you see both sides being a threat for the 5 if they continue the way that they're playing?
I think they'll be fighting for that sort of 5th spot, 5 and 6. I would say. I think your Subiaco, Claremont, West Perth are your strong 3. South Fremantle coming from a long way back, but again, momentum can do wonderful things in footy, as we know.
Now, the game in Mandurah. I was at this one on Friday, and it was a beauty. At 3/4 time, Peel Thunder almost looked gone. 21 points down. In fact, the deficit was 27 before 3/4 time. And then Peel Thunder, through the likes of Will Brodie, Sam Sturt, Trey Burnell, and also Michael Selwood, guided the Thunder home to a 4-point win over the Sharks in a round 1 thriller.
Do you think Will Brodie said, "Go, boys, jump on my back, I'll carry you through"? Because his 37 disposal game was outstanding. I'm sure he'll be putting his hand up for selection for their Freo Footy Club this week.
He made a massive statement. He was everywhere on the coalface. The East Fremantle midfielders just couldn't keep up with him. The way he was just getting the ball out of the contest and moving the Thunder into attack was just fantastic. Looks very fit, very quick on his feet too for a big man. He was absolutely outstanding. And 4 marks and 7 tackles to accompany that 37 disposals.
Because that was a bit of a knock on him, wasn't it? Was his speed potentially? So hopefully he has lightened off and can be a real benefit to Peel and Fremantle. I'm just interested to know, how did Sam Sturt go? Obviously a goal sneak.
Goal sneak.
For Freo, yeah.
Got 2 goals in 2 minutes in that final quarter. He was pretty lean for the first 3 quarters. Only had 14 touches and 4 marks. But the way he was able to light his team up back into the game in that final quarter, that burst of 2 goals in the space of a couple of minutes was the difference for Peel Thunder, because he can go and run like the wind inside 50 when he's on his best day. Wasn't entirely his best game. He only had that one big quarter, was the last one. But those 2 goals were so important for Peel Thunder in getting the momentum back their way.
2 goals in 2 minutes, that can get the crowd up. Players can feel that momentum and the energy can grow. So, it's a huge win, and I think East Fremantle will be disappointed at probably coughing that one up based on that 21-point deficit at 3/4 time.
And a lot of people, there are a lot of comments on the Around the Waffle social media pages saying that it's obvious that Peel came back because of the Dockers players' superior fitness. I don't really go into that much. I don't really go into the obvious, because East Fremantle, they had the momentum their way. 21 points in front. Cameron Erdley, again, magnificent. He was in form. Baskerville, too, was getting a lot of the footy. Luke English playing further up the ground, starting at half forward. He kicked 3 goals and was really tearing the Thunder defence to shreds for those first 3 quarters. They just ran out of steam. They just stopped, stalled. They weren't getting first to the football. Yeah. They just weren't desperate. If they need to be a top 3 side that they were last year, they need to show more desperation than what they did in the last quarter.
100%. Now, question for you here, Paul. Blake Blakehurst, obviously last year's centre medalist. Do you think his absence in that midfield would have played a part? Someone gets so much footy like he did or does?
I think for the first 3 quarters, it really didn't. Even though Blakehurst is a fantastic midfielder and great form he had until that tragic injury in round 16, I still think the Sharks' midfield depth is there. And also up forward, Blakehurst can push a little further up the ground and add some scoreboard pressure. They did have Dylan O'Reilly there, who started well, but was held to just 1 goal. Cody Leggett showed a little bit of benefit in the reserves earlier that day. Maybe he could come back for their game against Swan Districts to add a little firepower up forward. In the long term, it will be missed, but if he does come back late in the season, because speaking to Billy Monahan a couple of weeks ago on radio, his recovery is looking good. Could come back around June, July of this season and add that much-needed depth to East Fremantle's midfield, which is, exposed with that slight hole that Blakehurst has left with that injury. But it's going to be missed for a while. But if East Fremantle can get those wins on the board and have the likes of English, Murdoch, even Tom Joyce, who had a decent game with 18 touches, and Harrison Marsh from Subiaco, who started his season with the Sharks in terrific form, I think the stars will align, so to speak, for East Fremantle, even if Blakehurst comes back later in the year.
You mentioned Luke English. I noticed he had a bit of an incident with one of our umpires on the weekend, bit of umpire contact there, where the umpire went down. So I think that might be looked at this morning in MRP too. So interesting to see how that all plays out.
That one was an interesting incident there, I will say. But I think that one, not as serious as the Rotham incident. Obviously, 2 very different incidents
100%.
in general play. But I don't think English will have a case to answer for as far as he's concerned. And I think he'll play. I think he'll play in round 2.
Good to hear. Footy accident, maybe.
Yeah, easy. You always have those from time to time.
Indeed.
Now, this one obviously was a given. Next game game of the round, South Fremantle and the West Coast Eagles. South Fremantle, I spoke with Mark Reddings on Thursday, and early momentum so important for South Fremantle that they started on -8, but they got the first cobwebs off and demolished the Eagles 15-12 to 8-11.
Impressive. I don't think I've seen in my time in footy, Paul, where I've opened up the footy budget and I see a team -8.
Yeah, who would have thought?
So you've got to give credit to the footy club to work through that. The players have no control over what goes on off the field, but to get that first 4 points, which is in the -4, as you say rightly, build momentum, get to the positive, and things can happen really quickly.
I think it's the first time in WAFL history that a team has got the best percentage out of all the clubs and are at the bottom of the ladder with -4. That's never happened, I don't think.
I can't dispute that one by any means.
It was unbelievable, but it was a great performance by South Fremantle, and even with the departures of so many quality players, the likes of Mason Shaw, Hayden Schleith, and now Blake Schlensog, who left pre-season, South Fremantle still continue to be the side that we know, the side that the fans love to see, all-out attack, ruthless pressure, and we saw that on Saturday, especially through their forward line. Their forward setup is terrific. Brendan Donaldson, live wide with 3 goals. And Jimmy Miller, I touted him to have a big season up forward. 4 goals to start from 15 possessions. He's going to be such a big force up forward.
He's a big target. You mentioned Blake, what's his surname?
Schlensog.
He's playing for Carnarvon.
In Carnarvon.
I did a game up there a few weeks ago in the Norwest Cup, and he was playing pretty impressively. So again, another big body that they've lost. So like you say, those 3 players who have missed, to replace them are difficult, but good to see some enthusiastic young players coming through, and to kick 15 goals in WAFL is impressive.
Tom Bletchenden with 25 touches as well. He was fantastic, and so too Dylan Main, the new captain of South Fremantle. He led from the front. There were some positives for West Coast, though, even though the margin isn't very flattering for the Eagles. I mean, 15-12 to 8-11. Jackson Nelson showed that he can be solid, maybe get an AFL call-up later down the track, 22 touches and even 12 tackles. Not afraid to get physical at the coalface.
Jackson's always been a challenge to umpire. He plays on the edge. I think what we need to recognise too, and probably a bit of a shout out to Rob Wiley. I mean, he lost 6 players who probably would have been playing in that team if they, not for the injuries for the Eagles. So he's probably a bit unfortunate that game wasn't a lot close with some of the cattle he lost pre-game.
Yeah, especially with the injuries that they had from that derby. It was Carnage City over there in round 3 of the AFL season. Nelson, again, fantastic. Like I said, Josh Brown was brilliant. Harry Creasy, a little further up forward, he was held goalless, but he had 16 touches. He showed some positive signs. So it may have been a big loss for the Eagles, but there continues to be positive signs should they improve this season and climb a little further up the ladder.
Yep, there's some green shoots there for sure. And Rob Wiley's a very good educator of young players, so I'm sure if he can get their confidence right and their energy right, and when some of those players roll back when the Eagles get their injuries sorted, I think they'll be very competitive this year.
How many wins? Because they only had 1 win last season. That was against South Fremantle, ironically. Do you think they can get more than 1 win? Do they have the side there? It all depends, again, on how many AFL players are available.
Very reliant on the West Coast team, obviously. I would say around that 4 to 5 win mark. You know, if a WAFL team is off their guard by 10% and Eagles are full strength, they can really challenge. So yeah, I'd say between 4 and 5 wins for sure.
What about the game on Saturday nights? Final game for the round, and at quarter time, many people were thinking, what the hell's going on? Perth, you know, they're playing some great football. Their brand was brilliant. They were kicking to targets. They led 5-5 to 2-3. I was there at the ground and asking a couple of people, what the hell is going on? We were caught off guard by this Demons side. First game under Peter German, but Subiaco, they came back strongly, just too good, 11-15 to 8-7. But the margin shouldn't really convince Subiaco. I mean, to be caught off guard like that by a Perth side that is young and a lot of unknowns about them in that first quarter, and to kick 11-15, I don't think Bo Wardman and the Subiaco side should be convinced about that.
No, probably not. But it had a bit of Geelong Hawthorn, didn't it? You know, you could just sense that the Subiaco bigger bodies at some point would wear the young Perth team down. I guess that new coach, that new enthusiasm was always going to be on show in the first game at round 1, and obviously at their home ground as well. But I think the cream rose to the top at the end there. Those solid bodies, you know, experienced players just wore them down, and probably, what was the margin in the end? 26 points is about right. So so good on Subi for the win. I'm sure Bo, he's a perfectionist sort of coach. He'll be looking for ways to make that 56, obviously. But I'm sure Peter German will learn a lot from that first match in real deal footy.
Plenty of positives for the Demons side, especially their young players and some of the more experienced campaigners. Corey Byrne, 33 touches. Charlie Thompson, coming over from Victoria, he made a good first impression. 8 tackles to accompany his 23 possessions. Matty Taylor, all class in the back line. And Trent Manzoni coming in from West Perth, adding some premiership experience to the Demons. 25 touches. But there was only one name from Subiaco that I had my mind on. Ben Sokol, the Bernie Naylor medalist, 5 goals up forward.
Can he kick more than 80, do you reckon, Paul? Like, if he tracks along at his, let's say he plays 18 games at 5-6 goals a week, he could be one of our highest kicking goal kickers for a long time. So, yeah, quality finisher, experienced. His footy smarts are very good. On an inexperienced defender, which he might get from time to time, he can really expose them, no doubt.
And Subiaco's defensive setup on the other end of the ground was just fantastic, especially when they reeled Perth in that second and third quarter. Whenever Perth kicked inside 50, there was always a Lions player waiting to pick up the scraps and get those intercept marks. Those defenders were fantastic. Max Walters, too, was fantastic. And Stephen Gyro, the South Australian, 31 touches for Gyro, 25 for Walters. But Walters took 8 marks, a lot of them in that defensive half and a few in centre and a couple up forward as well. So Walters versatile all round the ground.
Yeah, and a strong body. I'm curious to know, how did Zach Clark go in the ruck, Paul?
Zach Clark, of course, back at the Subiaco fold after a couple of years in Victoria. 44 hit-outs and 19 touches. He was huge on Saturday night.
And he would have had, again, getting clean looks in those throw-ups. So I think some ruckmen can really benefit their side by getting clean looks in the centre now.
It will benefit those rucks in the long term because now the ruck contest is even. Both will get clean looks at the ball on those first throw-ups. And that goes back to the point that we mentioned at the beginning of the show, eradicating the bounce. I think, it could be for the better for the WAFL. The SANFL has done it. And the AFL, I reckon, in the next 12 months could see the bounce gone once and for all.
No doubt about that.
This is our Round 1 review. Paul Persick and Dean Margetts on Around the Waffle, thanks to BackChat. Okay. This week, and it's the first lot of these votes, the AFL, the Around the Waffle Player of the Year. And this will be an award for the best player, courtesy of Around the Waffle. We'll hopefully get some sponsor backing very, very soon. But the Around the Waffle Player of the Year votes will be one lot of 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And we'll get right into things. One vote, Aidan Clark of Swan Districts. His game in the midfield was fantastic. 2 votes, Jimmy Miller of South Fremantle. He's going to be a live wire up forward, and his 4 goals is a very, very good sign for the Bulldogs. 3 votes, Jai Bolton of Claremont. Quick on his feet, like you said, a little bit lighter. He's lost a bit of weight, and his versatility also can play a little bit further up the ground, but his work in the midfield, especially with those clearances for Claremont, they were huge in that game against West Perth. 4 votes, Will Brodie for Peel Thunder. He, like Jai Bolton, can be so good in the contest and get those possessions, get Peel Thunder going. He was fantastic, guiding the Thunder back into that game against East Fremantle. And the 5 votes, the Around the Waffle top gun of round 1, Ben Sokol of Subiaco. Just his performance up forward. Had a bit of a frustrating first quarter, but he came back into the game, made the game his own inside forward 50, and those 5 goals pretty much took the game right out of the Demons. I mean, no matter what defender you put on Sokol, he was going to take those marks in the one-on-ones every day of the week.
Impressive voting there, Paul. 5 goals was the difference, wasn't it? 26 points. So you take him out, and then all of a sudden the game's different. So hard to argue with those nominations there.
Now we'll go to some reserves and Colts scores. They deserve all the love as well in WAFL. West Perth, they defeated Claremont 9-20 to 6-3. East Perth were defeated by Swan Districts 10-13 to 7-7. Peel Thunder, they also got beat by East Fremantle by 12 points, 9-7 to 8-1. And Subiaco, too good for the Demons, 11-16 to 10-7. In the Colts, there were a couple of familiar faces in the Colts in round 1. Claremont accounting for West Perth, 13-10 to 4-8. Swan Districts thrashed by East Perth, 15-11 to 8-8. East Fremantle, they defeated Peel Thunder. It was another close game there, 11-11-77. And East Fremantle just far too good for Peel Thunder in the opening round of the Colts season. And there, like I said, there were a lot of famous faces in the Colts, including the son of an Eagles premiership player, Banfield. Watch out for him, of course, the son of Drew Banfield in that game for Subiaco.
I was at the West Perth Claremont Colts game, Paul, and I have to say, when I walked out on the grounds to give the umpires a bit of feedback, the size of the players, that's what's just sort of shocked me now. They're just AFL built, ready to go. So I always say to our umpires, don't ever disrespect the Colts competition because the players are just simply too good. So the sizing was bit of a surprise for me.
And the fact that they're getting a lot more exposure as far as coverage is concerned, they've got their own identity as far as the Colts competition is concerned.
Yeah, 100% agree. And a lot of these players come from like sort of PSA backgrounds and their weights programs. You can see their conditioning now, and they're just built ready for the next level of football, which is great to see.
Of course, Banfield, O'Driscoll, Van Ruin, Anna McDonald. four famous names lighting up the Colts competition.
Yeah, it's great for the footy. It's great to see brothers coming through of current AFL players, and it's just great that we can share that and celebrate it. And I think it's all good for the WAFL competition moving forward.
Banfield playing for Claremont. My apologies. So we're just getting.
I thought I saw him in the crowd.
Yes. just getting into the thick of things for the Colts competition this season.
No, good on you, mate.
Fantastic. All right, that just about does it for this week's edition of Around the Waffle. Dean, we appreciate you coming on the show, making calls of a different kind. Obviously, after 300 AFL games, we really appreciate it, man.
No, thanks for having me on, Paul. And like I say, the Waffle's in really good shape on and off the field, and our umpires are working really hard to get those decisions right. So give them a pat on the back occasionally.
I'll put you on the hot seat before I let you go. Who does win the premiership this year?
The premiership. It's going to be easy to say this, but I'll say on what I saw on the weekend, Claremont look hard to beat. They look like there's a hunger there. That grand final loss, I think it burns for them, and I can just see that club, galvanised together to probably have an assault on the premiership in 2023.
Yeah, Ashley Prescott's boys looking really, really good after the opening round. Gritty win over West Perth. Sometimes you've got to win gritty to get the 4 points, 100%. And that's exactly what they did.
An ugly win maybe, but it was tough conditions, a bit breezy, but I think it's those moments where if you find the 4 points in those close games, that's what holds you in good stead at the back end of the season. So,
exactly.
But wish all the clubs all the best for the year.
Thank you, Dean.
Thanks,
all the
Paul.
best for the season. And we thank you, all our listeners and our viewers, for tuning in to today's edition of Around the Waffle. Don't forget, Thursday, it's our Round 2 preview. We're right into the season. And we also want to send you a reminder that our regular co-host, Taylor Cowper, he will be making his debut next week to review Round 2 of the WAFL season. You remember, you can listen on wherever you get your podcast, and you can also watch on YouTube as well. Thanks for tuning in. We look forward to your company on Thursday.